Hello, dear viewer. Before starting this story, please subscribe and like it. Enjoy watching.
The world is drowning in gray. The sky over northern France is a sheet of cold steel, and the ground is a churned mess of mud and trampled grass. Thousands of men stand knee-deep in the filth, their breath turning to mist in the air. On one side, ranks of French knights gleam in polished armor, banners snapping in the wind. On the other, a ragged line of Englishmen, their armor piecemeal, their faces shadowed beneath worn leather caps. But in their hands, they hold something the French fear far more than any sword or lance: the longbow. A tall archer named William Fletcher wipes rain from his brow. He can smell the damp wood in his hand, feel the string biting into his fingers. The bow is taller than he is, and it pulls at his shoulders with the strength of a war horse. Around him, the line of archers raises their weapons in eerie unison, like a forest coming to life. Across the field, the French are confident. Knights have ruled battlefields for centuries, charging with the power of iron and horseflesh. But today, William knows history is about to change. King Henry V, standing just behind the archers, studies the enemy through the drizzle. His army is outnumbered 5-1. Sickness and hunger have gnawed at them for weeks. But he also knows what the French don't: the range of the longbow, the speed of its arrows, and the discipline of the men who wield them will do more damage than any sword could. The first command is given. William draws. His shoulders groan under the strain. The string hums like a plucked harp. In that heartbeat before release, the field is silent, and then a storm of arrows darkens the sky. Centuries earlier, in the dense forest of Wales, a boy watches his father carve a bough from a yew tree. The wood is pale at its heart, darker on the outside, the perfect combination of flexibility and strength. This is no child's toy. The bough is as tall as a man, the draw weight so heavy that a grown man's chest will ache after a dozen shots. Welsh archers have been feared by English invaders for generations. The English kings, after tasting the sting of their arrows, didn't try to destroy the weapon. They adopted it. By the 13th century, the longbow had become the backbone of English military power. Laws were passed requiring every able-bodied man to practice archery on Sundays. Markets banned games that distracted from shooting practice. Boys grew into men with their shoulders deformed and their spines twisted from years of drawing a weapon that could punch through armor. The secret was in the weapon's range and speed. A trained archer could shoot 10 to 12 arrows a minute, each one able to pierce a knight's mail at over 200 yards. Against cavalry, it was devastating. Against infantry, it was slaughter. This wasn't just a tool of war. It was social upheaval made of wood and string. It meant that a peasant, armed with training and discipline, could bring down a noble in the prime of battle. The age-old hierarchy of the battlefield, where birth and title determined victory, was about to be shattered by the hiss of an arrow. Year 1346. The 100 Years' War has just begun, and Edward III's army faces a much larger French force at Crécy. The French are confident, with thousands of crossbowmen and heavily armored knights. But as they advance, a sudden storm breaks. Rain soaks the strings of the Genoese crossbows, rendering them sluggish. On the English side, the longbowmen take the same rain in stride. Their bowstrings are kept dry under caps or cloaks until the signal is given. When it comes, the effect is biblical. Waves of arrows hammer into the advancing French lines. Horses scream, knights fall, and chaos spreads. A French knight named Jean de Clermont charges through the arrow storm, determined to crush the archers. He makes it halfway before 3 shafts strike his armor, the third punching through a weak spot in his visor. His body collapses into the mud, another casualty of a weapon that cares nothing for chivalry. Crécy marks the moment when the longbow's reputation is forged in blood. It's not just a number of dead. It's the shock that trained peasants could stand their ground against Europe's finest knights and win. Archers like William Fletcher don't appear overnight. From the age of 7, boys begin drawing smaller bows. building the muscles they'll need for war. By 15, they're strong enough to pull a war bow, draw weights often exceeding 150 pounds. Their fingers develop thick calluses, their chests widen, their arms grow like braided rope. Skeletons of medieval archers found centuries later show warped spines, enlarged left arms, and deformed shoulders, the marks of a lifetime spent drawing the longbow. Training is relentless. Accuracy isn't enough. Speed is everything. A good archer can hit a target at 200 yards, but in battle, it's the volume of fire that wins. A single volley can break a cavalry charge before it reaches striking distance. In peacetime, these men are laborers, farmers, craftsmen. In war, they are the king's most lethal weapon. The longbow also becomes a symbol of national identity. English kings prize their archers so much that they grant pardons for certain crimes if the guilty party is an archer. A man with a longbow isn't just a soldier. He's a living reminder that England's power rests on skill and discipline, not just noble birth. Year 1415. Henry V invades France with 12,000 men, hoping to claim his right to the French crown. Disease and exhaustion thin his ranks as they march through enemy territory. By the time he reaches the village of Agincourt, his army is barely 6,000 strong, facing a French force 5 times larger. The French plan is simple: crush the English under sheer numbers. They believe their heavily armored knights will sweep the field. But Henry knows the terrain, a narrow, muddy field between 2 dense woods, perfect for funneling the enemy into the killing range of his archers. William Fletcher stands among thousands of bowmen, their arrows tipped with bodkin points, designed to punch through armor like a knife through parchment. The night before the battle, the men sleep in the open, rain soaking their clothes. Henry walks the camp, speaking to them not as a distant monarch, but as a commander who will share their fate. The next day, when the French advance begins, it will be into the jaws of a weapon they still underestimate. The morning is damp and heavy with mist. French horns sound in the distance. Henry orders the archers to drive sharpened stakes into the mud before them, angled to impale charging horses. Then silence. The French hesitate, unwilling to cross the churned field. Henry makes the first move. He orders his men forward, just far enough to provoke the French into charging. As they do, the English unleash their storm. Thousands of arrows rise and fall like black rain, punching through armor, dropping horses mid-gallop. The narrow field becomes a death trap. Fallen knights clog the mud, the living tripping over the dead. William draws and releases, again and again, until his fingers bleed. He can see the fear spreading in the enemy ranks. The French have numbers, but numbers can't protect against a sky that kills. By the battle's end, thousands of French lay dead, including many of their nobility. The English lose only a few hundred. Agincourt cements the longbow's place as one of the most decisive weapons in medieval history. For nearly 2 centuries, the longbow dominates English warfare. It changes the very structure of armies, making room for disciplined commoners to play decisive roles in battles once ruled by knights. But like all weapons, it eventually meets its match in gunpowder. By the late 16th century, muskets and cannons begin to eclipse the longbow's power. Yet its legacy endures. The victories at Crécy, Poitiers, and Agincourt reshaped Europe's balance of power. The longbow proves that technology and training can overturn centuries of military tradition. It also leaves a cultural mark. The raised 2-finger salute, some say, comes from English archers taunting the French after battle, showing the fingers they used to draw the bow. Centuries later, in a quiet museum, William Fletcher's longbow, or one just like it, rests behind glass. It's what is darkened with age, the curve still graceful, the string long gone. Visitors walk past it quickly, glancing at the placard. Few realize that this simple piece of you once reshaped the fate of nations. The longbow didn't just kill enemies. It killed the idea that war belonged to the elite. It gave power to trained common men, altering the course of English history, and leaving an echo that still whispers through the ages.